Great.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. This is Level Up Your Career with Soft Skill Points. It may or may not be video game themed. You've been warned. First, I'd like to thank you for joining us at the 11th Annual Denver Startup Week. Yes, legalese, have to go through it. Thank you to our title sponsors, Amazon, Capital One Cafe, Dell for Startups, and the Downtown Denver Partnership. That's where we are. This session is part of the developer track, sponsored by Quizlet, one of 8 programming tracks aimed at supporting the entire entrepreneurial team. Oh my God, I said it right. If you're a developer here for the Offsite Construction Expo, which is actually going on right now, I got some good news and bad news for you. The bad news is this is software development. The good news is you'll probably get something out of this presentation, so you can just stay here. By attending the session, you're agreeing to follow the code of conduct as to being photographed and recorded on video. In the back of the room, there's a big video camera. It is pointed at me. It'll probably stay pointed at me. If you have a question, I can give you the microphone if you want to be on video, or I can just repeat the question. We'll wing it. We'll figure out how it goes. Be sure to share your experience of this session online using the hashtag DenStartupWeek, and feel free to add your own. Oh, that was a note for me. Feel free to add your own hashtag too. Let's do the hashtag Yay Chris. Does that sound good, everybody? Yay Chris. All right. 7. Y-A-A-A-A-A-A. Yeah, that sounds good. Just want to go ahead and take a look at our sponsors. Capital One, I've been banking with them since 2002. Security people in here who are cringing, I apologize. What else we got here? Comcast, they provide internet. Chase Bank, love them too. Cool. Let's get started. Level up your career with soft skill points. My name is Chris Boren. Pronouns are he, him. I'm a staff engineer at Click Studios. Going to talk a little bit about me, but not too much. I'm a full stack staff engineer. Full stack meaning when I go and get food, I get 3 pancakes and not 2. Engineer meaning I work in the United States as a developer and I can legally use the term engineer. If I go to Canada, I cannot call myself an engineer. So just want to throw that out there. And staff, which means that they're running out of titles for individual contributors like me. I think that it goes intern, junior, mid-level, senior, staff, principal, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan red, then blue. So I think that's how that works. I have been creating websites since 1999. My first website was a Legend of Zelda fan site. I put ROMs on there. Nintendo did not like that. I've worked as a developer in many industries, especially freelance. About once a year I do a freelance project and I never know what I'm going to get there. I can't actually see this, so I have to look at my laptop. I apologize, there's some glare. I worked for fan conventions. If you've ever been to an anime convention in the Midwest, I assure you, you've seen my work. I've worked in the healthcare industry and finance, mandatory business casual. It sucks, don't do that. I currently work for an awesome digital agency called Click Studios, who we'll be talking about a little bit later in this presentation. Most recently, I've been working in TypeScript and React, but I also do a lot of SAS. I'm really front-end heavy. And yes, I use WordPress too. I've worked with many, many well-known brands, McDonald's, Hilton, BMW, American Medical Association. If you've been to Chicago, Lincoln Park Zoo. If you've been to Michigan, Beaumont Healthcare, just to name a few. And in Denver, I'm probably known as the guy who built the website for the most popular music venue in the world. That one right there. So if you've ever gone to the site to book tickets and it crashed on you, you have full reign to yell at me after this presentation because I built it. I want to give a shout out to Suj, Paul, and especially Janina for the designs on that. I didn't do it myself. I just did the code. This is actually relevant to this presentation. For about 3 years, I co-hosted a video game industry talk show with those 2 gentlemen right there. The downside of that is every single technical presentation I give has a video game spin to it. This one is not an exception, so I apologize if you are not a gamer. With that, let's talk about soft skills. Soft skills are the non-technical interpersonal skills that make you day-to-day. That's a lot of words. Let's do this differently. Let's think about your company or your team as a party in an RPG. Every person plays a specialized role. Your project manager might be a healer. Your designer might be a magic user. Your developer, DPS, so damage per second for non-gamers, or a warrior. And sometimes every person has secondary skills that they bring to the table that makes them valuable. They're not as powerful as the character's primary skill set, but they're very helpful to the party, and it makes them a very valuable addition to the team. And today I want to talk about one specific video game where I'm going to showcase these soft skills. It is the greatest RPG ever created. You get 2 hints to what it is. 1, I'm balding, and 2, it came out in 1993. Does anybody want to guess what RPG I'm talking about? No, but good guess. Oh, another good guess, man. Never heard of that one, but okay. Fallout, one last guess? Ooh, that's a good guess too. We're gonna do something a little bit different today. We are gonna talk about my favorite game, Chrono Trigger. And this is some AI generated art that I said, City of Denver in the style of Chrono Trigger, and that's what it gave me. So let's talk about your dev team, or let's talk about the team of the Chrono Trigger. We're just going to talk about a few characters here. We have Chrono. He's the main character, or maybe the founder of your startup. He can do everything. He can talk to venture capitalists, he can code, he can design, he knows what's up, and he's way overpowered, so let's not focus on him. Then we have Frog. Frog is that developer who joins early on. He's a jack of all trades. He's a great fighter and a little bit of healing ability. Everybody loves working with Frog. He used to be a designer, I guess. Looks artsy. And he has a very strong secondary heal. Next character I want to talk about is Magus. He is very, very powerful. He is by far the best developer in his craft, or the best person in his craft. He's a magic user in the game. He's just a little bit antisocial. He started off as a villain, and he's kind of unpleasant to be around. But we still love him anyway because he really knows his stuff. And then finally, we have the most important character, the character that everybody wants to aspire to be, the character that everybody includes in their party, Robo. Robo, they're weird, they're quirky, they're really good in combat. They have an awesome group healing ability, and we're going to focus on him. Because it's those secondary skills that make everybody want to work with Robo. Everybody wants to include him in a party. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you proof that everybody wants to do it. I actually have some messages from a project manager here. But let's go back into what that means in the real world, right? Step back from video games. Soft skills are the secondary skills that make you a well-rounded teammate. You know, some examples: communication, critical problem-solving skills, giving and receiving feedback, time management. Those are all very important skills to have when you're a developer or just when you're in a team setting. But for developers, it can be kind of hard. We have a lot of stuff on our plates. There's new frameworks, new methodologies, new languages, solving problems in code, updates to our stack, AngularJS being completely discontinued, Vue 3. I can go on from personal experience. It can be really exhausting. So that's why it's more important for devs to focus on their soft skill set, because we have so much on our plate already, and we need to take that opportunity to grow that skill set. Like Robo and Frog, everybody wants one of them to be part of the party because of their secondary abilities, and that opens up opportunities for them. Sometimes being the most powerful antisocial antagonist turned party member just isn't enough. So let's level up. Like an RPG, we need to get experience in order to improve ourselves. And if you've ever played an RPG, that means a lot of grinding. In RPGs and Chrono Trigger, right when you unlock the forest area, I usually spend my first hour just, killing monsters and leveling myself up. I'm currently playing like Yakuza Like a Dragon. I'm getting into every single combat experience I can because I know that I'm building the foundation for later on in the game. I'm building myself up to make sure that I can take care of business later. But you need to think of developing your soft skills every day in every situation in order to improve. From personal experience, I'm an introvert. I just pretend to be an extrovert. This week I spent more hours in my hotel room generating AI art than actually attending sessions, just because, yeah, I can talk on stage, but you talk to me in person, after about 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, bye. I used to be the super quiet person. I never spoke up, and slowly over the course of many years in many industries, I was able to kind of grow and get to the point where I'm like, yeah, sure, give me a microphone. I can talk for 30 minutes about this. Let's do it, but we're gonna talk about video games. One important thing I do want to mention is I had a really good mentor. His name was Kevin Bershey. He's probably never going to see this. Former board member for the National Association of EMTs, former firefighter turned executive. He would come in carrying a cigar and cussing like a sailor into the boardroom and C-suite level meetings. And I'm like, whoa, you can do that? You can do that? So I learned a lot from him about being able to present, being able to talk, and more importantly, being your true self, because that's probably the most important thing with soft skills, is being able to open yourself up, be your true self, not worry about being judged for what you do, and just putting yourself out there. The rewards will be tremendous. Unless you're a villain turned party member, then maybe not. But Skills you can focus your grind on. I want to talk a little bit about individual skills. There are a lot of skills that are in here that we can talk about. In fact, the next slide is a link to something that I did not write that is about a 30-minute read that you can learn more about every single soft skill imaginable. We don't have time for that. Introvert, I can't talk that long. But I do want to talk about some low-hanging fruit that you can do every single day. You know, communication. You know, one thing you can do is put yourself out there, discuss with your project managers and your designers issues before they happen, issues that are going on, and provide alternatives. Think outside the box. Try to put yourself out there and give options. Don't be afraid to be vocal. Being effective in your communications, not just communicating what you're working on, but also the challenges you're facing. You have a deadline that's coming up and you're not going to meet it. Tell somebody it's totally okay. Make sure you're communicating like that. No, I did not create this presentation at 11 o'clock last night. When you're on a tough call, maybe with a client or a stakeholder, try to feel out the mood of the situation. Think, should I speak up or maybe should I stay quiet, right? Not every disagreement is a battle that needs to be won right there on the spot, especially if you're low on healing items, Sometimes it's okay to retreat. Touch base with your team. See how everybody's doing, what page everybody's on. Stock up on some potions and jump back into the battle later. But it's also important to know when voicing your opinion is important. I just said important twice. See, told you I'm not good at this. It's important to know when to voice your opinion on a project, though. Sometimes you do have to speak up. You do have to get outside your comfort zone. And you won't be the most popular person after that call. But that's okay, because that's what's needed for the project. And I would encourage everybody to do that. This one requires a little bit more practice. And as you're trying this in the real world, you're going to fail at this many, many times. When you're in a meeting and the call is very sour, you can do things to try to change the mood of that meeting. You can lighten it up with a joke. You can try to change the subject. You can do a lot of different things. Try injecting your personality a little bit, but it takes a little bit of practice. And you're going to screw up a few times. It's okay. It's all about growth. Being comfortable with who you are. I mentioned that earlier, and I did not write notes for that one, but that is critically important when you're trying to communicate with teammates or when you're trying to communicate with stakeholders. Maybe don't cuss like a sailor when you're talking to Hilton, but you can go ahead and inject a little bit of your personality. I've been on calls with a large major corporation, a bunch of executives. I didn't think this was going to happen. I always introduce myself. Hi, my name's Chris. I'm a staff engineer at Click Studios, and I have 2 cats named after the Star Trek character Dax. C-suite. Lady looks at the camera. It's a Zoom call, of course, right? Post 2020. Looks at me and she's like, Jedzia and Curzon? And I'm like, no, Curzon and Esri, but good guess. Was not expecting that in that C-suite meeting. But it's okay to inject your personality, whether it's video games, whether it's music, whether it's anything else. We have an executive at Click Studios who is a musician. Behind him is every instrument available. It might just be guitars. I don't know. I don't really pay attention. I'm not a music person, so I don't get half of his analogies, but I love his personality. But he'll inject music analogies into every single thing he does, and that helps so much with communication. That helps so much with those high-level calls. It's unbelievable. And then, other things that you can do too. Click Studios, we have 3 values. I stole 2 of them for this presentation. Be a student and a teacher. Put yourself out there. Try to learn everything you can, even if it's not relevant to you. And try to teach when you can. Try to share your knowledge. Sometimes it's really hard as a developer to share your knowledge because when we're talking a foreign language. So it's very important to make sure we're speaking through analogy, and it's very important to make sure that our concepts are clear and understood. Keep it high level. Don't go into code. Make somebody's job easier. That should be the creed of everything you do at work. I truly believe that. When you go out and you try to put an effort to make everybody's job easier, you make your own job easier. And then you're like Robo, because now you don't need a dedicated healer. So everybody's going to want to include you in that party. And again, this slideshow, it probably about an hour after this presentation will be on my website, chrisboren.net. You can download it. The only difference will be there will not be a picture of my son at the front slide because I don't put pictures of him on the internet. So there's ways that you can build your skills, right? We just talked about this. Help your non-developer teammates. PMs, especially project managers, they can be your worst enemy or they can be your best friend. The more you help your PMs, the more they're going to help you, and the easier your life is going to be. Proactively reach out and see when they're struggling. Ask if they're all right, or if there's anything that you can help with. Yeah, it might be additional work on your plate right now, but going forward, that's going to make everybody's life easier. And the thing to remember is sometimes as developers, we can be very, very intimidating, right? Like, we speak, like I mentioned this, we speak a foreign language, but we have such a vast repository of knowledge, right? I can switch topics from React to something in style sheets to something in DevOps, maybe a deployment on DigitalOcean. I can talk about that fluidly. Nobody else can. So you need to be cognizant that you can be very intimidating as a developer, and maybe just dial it back a little bit. Try to go slowly. Try to explain everything. Question?
So how do you gauge what their knowledge is? Because like sometimes they'll be able to follow you along through all of that and understand it, but you don't want to push like things that they're stupid or like less than or anything like that, or unknowledgeable, or talk up to some like if somebody knows all.
Right, that's really difficult because you don't want to come off as you know, condescending, but you want to make sure that you're meeting them in the middle somewhere. The question is, how do you kind of gauge where they're at? And what I do is I try to. First, I try to sprinkle in dev knowledge slowly, right? So I'll say a dev term, and I'll deliberately try to see what the reaction is going to be to that dev term and see if they're following. Secondly, I'll step back and say, okay, so are you familiar with X, Y, and Z? Are you familiar with flexible content fields in WordPress, right? So I'll ask a very, very specific question. That specific question will let me know if they have that specific knowledge or if they have that broad knowledge of just WordPress. Well, you know, I've worked in WordPress in the back end for a few projects, but I've never seen flexible content. Okay, cool. Now I have a basis of where you are and what we can talk about to carry on that conversation. So I would say start off slowly, try to read them and see where they're at. Some people do that thing where they smile, nod, and pretend they're following you, and they have no idea what's going on. And make sure you inject questions too. Make sure you ask, hey, you know, have you worked with this before? That's probably the best way. Have you worked with this? Because you're not asking for their knowledge, you're asking for their experience. So that's how I'd address that. Yep, no problem. Another thing you can help build your skills, volunteer for things. Chances are in your workplace, there's committees, there's ways that you can reach out and go that extra mile to be seen, to be visible, and to kind of build a rapport with your teammates. It's a lot easier to progress your career if your teammates want to work with you. And it's a lot easier to get to a point where your teammates want to work with you if you're the guy that they can always depend on, even if it's planning movie night, right? So try to volunteer for things. Practice outside of work. That link that was earlier in the slideshow, for communication, they recommended join a Toastmasters club or do stand-up comedy. I'm not suggesting that for developers, but there's opportunities that you can do that will help you get out there. One thing I'm trying to explore right now is meetups in the Los Angeles area. You know, trying to get out there, meet new people, and, you know, practice presenting, and hopefully next time not creating my presentation at 11 o'clock p.m. the night before. And then always put yourself in the shoes of others. How can you make their job easier? Is you guys seeing a theme here? Yes?
From the super non-developer perspective,
yes.
really completely different language, what are some of the ways that, you know, from that side, you can meet in the middle and connect with, again, you know, developers who are thinking completely different?
Oh, that's a really good question. So from a non-developer perspective, how do you connect with developers? I can't speak for everybody because everybody's an individual. For me personally, it's really more of show me that you're excited about something, that you want to learn something, and I would love to show you more about that. So going back to our WordPress example, hey, I noticed that I can crop images in WordPress. Can you tell me a little bit more? Is this a good solution for clients? That's a really good way to approach a developer and try to get more of that knowledge. But again, try to keep it non-technical, because the second you try to clue me in that you know technical stuff, I am going to speak that foreign language, and then we're not going to communicate. So always try to keep it non-technical when trying to meet developers in the middle, but try to show interest in something. Try to show a specific item that you're trying to engage in, I would say. Keep it small and go from there, and then you can build off of that. That's what I would suggest. Yes?
A joke that might help.
Oh, now you get the microphone.
How do you tell when a developer is an extrovert instead of an introvert? They stare at your shoes when they're talking to you. Your mention of being in the shoes reminded me of that.
Guilty. Guilty. All right, I think that's that slide. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're good on time. We might run over a little bit. Is that okay with everybody? All right, cool. Before we continue, I want to do a message from our sponsor, Click Studios, digital transformation experts. That's the company I work for. We work with mom and pop shops. We work with startups. We work with large corporations. Before Corona, we were based out of 2 main locations, Chicago and Denver. And now we're national, also known as fully remote. We still call Chicago and Denver our homes, but we're everywhere. For example, I moved to LA. I have a project manager in Walla Walla, Washington. We're all over the country. Some work that we've done that you might have seen, Denver Public Arts, we did both the website and app for that. Red Rocks, again, you can yell at me after this meeting. We've worked with McDonald's, Team USA Volleyball out of Colorado Springs, Bitly, Mile High Golf Trail. So we kind of do everything. If you're in a startup and you're looking for digital transformation, we're your people. If you're a developer and you're looking for a job, we're growing. So yeah, there's my plug. Everybody else is including it in like their first 3 slides. I'm like, no, we're gonna do this like a podcast. I promised tips for technical presentations. I also scheduled this for 30 minutes because I'm like, I'm not going to have enough to talk about. So I want to try to carry out my promise that I gave, but it's going to be really short. Just like my first bullet point, keep it short. Technical presentations are notorious for going deep dive into code. Don't do that. Don't do code. Unless you have to show a code example, then I think it's my last, I'm bouncing around here. Try to use one of those little cute screenshot generators, throw that in there, and let your audience do the research on their own on the technical concept. Present a high-level concept first. Everybody in your technical presentation is probably going to be really smart, and they're going to be able to figure it out. So don't dive into the deep end. Kind of tread water a little bit. Give them the opportunity to learn on their own. Know your audience. That's really good for technical presentations. You're not going to give a technical explanation to a group of designers on something that doesn't apply to design. Make sure you're speaking to your audience and not necessarily speaking to what you want to talk about. A good example would be as a front-end developer, if I'm talking about, some crazy stuff with CSS Grid, well, maybe the back-end developers aren't my audience for that, right? So be cognizant of who your audience is. Inject a little bit of personality. Again, do that in everything that you do. If it's Dungeons and Dragons, awesome. If it's LARPing, I think you can do that now. You can admit that. I've never done that. Yeah, okay. I LARPed for about 5 years. I was a 5th level cleric elf. There's pictures of me on the internet in elf ears. No, I think I've seen a trailer for it, but I've never seen it. The question was, have I seen the movie Role Models? I have not. Is it a good movie? All right, I'll check it out.
Good enough that I bought the Blu-ray of it.
All right. I bought a Blu-ray burner and I never used it, so I'll take a look at that. Don't write down everything you're going to say on the slide. Nobody likes reading a paragraph of text. Remember when we started talking about soft skills at the very beginning of this presentation? We had like 3 paragraphs of text. I didn't read it because that sucks. Don't do it. Don't take it too serious. If you screw up the presentation, it's totally okay. Nobody's going to remember in 2 weeks. And if you don't screw it up, people might actually remember it, but don't take it too serious. And of course, try to avoid code. Oh, cool. I wrote notes here. Personality, inject music, games you like, TV show, LARP. There we go. And the last thing I want to talk about is what I look for in interviews. I only have 3 bullet points here, but they're really important. When I interview somebody, whether they're a contractor who's going to come and work for us on a project or 2, whether it's an intern, whether it's a front-end engineer, of course I'm looking at their code, right? Of course I'm looking at the quality that they're putting out. But more importantly than that, I'm looking at what they're passionate about. Oh, okay, so you decided to use Gap on Flexbox here, even though it's not completely widely supported. Why did you go ahead and choose to do that? Let's talk about that. Oh, you think this is really cool? Awesome. Oh, you made a Pokédex? Let's talk about your Pokédex. Was that from your boot camp? No, you branched out? Cool. I want to know what you're passionate about. Even if it's not the code you're writing, I want to know that you're passionate about something. And then soft skills, we've been talking about that a lot. That's what this presentation is. But I need to know how well you communicate. So I'm going to ask soft questions. I'm going to ask hard questions. I'm not going to say I don't care about the answer to that question, but I'm looking more for how you respond to the questions when I'm doing technical interviews. I'm looking at your code, I'm looking at your knowledge, I'm looking at how you respond to what's being asked, how you navigated through a rough situation. You know, this is a question you're always asked in interviews. Well, tell me about a time that you were there and you were in conflict and stuff. The outcome is good. I want to know what you did. I want to know how you navigated that. Did you communicate with your teammates? Is that how you overcame the issue? Did you not talk? Were you quiet and do you regret that? I want to know what you learned from that too. And I want to see like if we connect and we can work together. Again, I want you to be Robo. I don't want you to be Magus because you're going to help the team if you're Robo. Cool. Did my last note there. So unfortunately, because I made this presentation at 11 o'clock, that's my entire presentation. So just want to say thank you for playing. Thank you for joining. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
You're not going to teach about time travel since it's
so what I'm going to say is they patch the Steam version and get the Steam version of Chrono Trigger and play through it. It is a brilliant game. You're going to love it. It has time travel. It has plot twists. It has futuristic magic stuff. It's really good. And I promise you some proof that it's good to be Robo. This is an actual conversation that I had with our Associate Director of Project Management. He's like, I love this. I just played Chrono Trigger. I'm like, oh, who's in your party? Oh, it's Chrono, Robo, and Frog. I'm like, yes, Robo. All right, you validated my entire presentation. I appreciate that. So that is it. Any other questions from the audience? Yes? Will I be on your live stream to teach something for Teach Gen Tech? Let's talk after the presentation, possibly.
Good answer.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. Please enjoy the rest of Denver Startup Week, the rest of the sessions that are here, and thank you very much. And again, the slideshow will be on my website, chrisboren.net. Thank you, and have a good day.